Welcome to the 66th edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. I am Kyle Klingman, joined by Scott Beck. Scott, I don't want to overstate it. Everyone wants to say it's the biggest weekend of the season, and it's the biggest weekend of women's college wrestling. I will say this, it's one of the most important weekends of women's college wrestling because you have everything converging together. You have the Grandview Open, which is just a great testing ground, one of the major tournaments of the season. That will be on Saturday, followed by For Her duels in Coralville at Extreme Arena, which will be fascinating because we finally get the duel between McKendree and Iowa. That is guaranteed to happen on the NCAA side. Now, I don't know what each team is going to have, so one team might not have a full lineup, and the other team might be maneuvering around, and there might be injuries. Either way, we are going to learn so much from this weekend because this is like a pole position, because this is new territory. You have the NCAA championships, only 18 qualifiers, one qualifier maximum per school per weight. And so we've talked about this all season long. 103, you're going to have four title contenders sitting on the sideline. Iowa's going to have two minimum. You're going to have McKendree's going to have one, and North Central's going to have one. And you have a national champion in Maddie Avila who might not be the starter for North Central. So right now you're just positioning yourself to see where you are for the upcoming season. So this is so important. And this might be the last time that these coaches have that opportunity to see where their wrestlers are against great competition. This is absolutely crucial this upcoming weekend.
So it's also very possible that somebody is going to play possum. They can put somebody in and not really care how they necessarily do because they've already decided to go with a different person, but they don't want, the other team to know or get the feel of it, So it'll be interesting to see how things work out. I mean, if everybody wrestles anyway, there could be some injuries. People are, this time of the year, people get banged up a little bit. So sometimes you might want to rest some people, but yeah, big weekend, a lot of stuff coming up. Very excited.
Equally excited for the McKendree and Iowa William Penn versus Life. I've wanted to see this one just as much as I've wanted to see the other. Just because we haven't seen the two Olympians in there, I'm assuming Mia Palumbo is going to descend down to 110 pounds and see her at her right weight. And then you have Ogun Sanya at 117. Just saw that Esther Kolawali wrestled 138 at the Midland Open over the weekend. And so, of course, she blasted her way through that. But to see a full Life University lineup against a full William Penn, this is what I've wanted to see all season. I hope it happens at some level. And then which team is going to come out on top. So like we said last show, you're going to get McKendree against either Life or William Penn. You're going to get Iowa against either Life or William Penn.
Great. I'm excited.
To see those matchups, it's just going to be fundamental. We need more of those cross-bragging. I mean, For Her duels is genius. This is just going to be a great thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure Life is looking forward to it as well. If they can come to William Penn, getting another crack at an NCAA team, I'm sure they were not pleased with their performance at the dual meet at Life, so they'll have a chance for redemption. It's really good. We don't know exactly who's going to wrestle each other, in those cross-bracketing matches, but they will cross-bracket, and we will get some iteration of it.
Tristan Kelly, I think, might be at the Zagreb Open, so we might not get her in the McKendree lineup. So we'll see. Again, you just don't know how those things will play out, so you might not have the full lineup on each. Hope you will. But regardless, you will see some crucial matchups for seeding at the NCAA championships, which I think is important.
Yeah, and you and I also talked about this, that it's really on the NCAA side for the tournament, the two tournament teams. I'd be stunned if the top two teams were not Iowa and McKendree, just based on the math and the depth of those teams. But that's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily correlate to who wins a dual meet. So this is going to be interesting on both the NAIA side and the NCAA side, and we're just getting more data points. Yeah, adjustments can and will be made. And as you saw, when we saw Sage Mortimer wrestle Yu Sakamoto, tech her, and then she gets teched 2 weeks later. So, freestyle's a funny sport, and you can't read too much into one match. You have to watch the match. And even if you watch it, you can't always read too much into it. It could be one position.
Why this weekend's also important is because the Women's Warrior Open, which we didn't even mention, took place. Because of the storm, there weren't as many teams, so that will course correct. Next year it'll probably be better than ever, but you didn't have all of the teams there. It could be that Grandview gets a lot of those wrestlers coming in, and then you have this dynamic. You have the North Central, a Division III team, just beat Wartburg, the second best Division III team, 37-8 in a duel. So they won the all divisions national duels. They beat NAI national duels champion in Life, and then they beat the D3 champion in Wartburg. Probably will never happen again. But with D3 splitting off, we have the next 2 seasons. Presumably, I know that Joe is thinking about trying to get a dispensation so that their program can compete against the other D1 and D2s. But for now, we are in this unique space where do you go with your program? What are your decisions that you make? Because we might not get North Central ever again after next season. You have to enjoy this ride while you have it because you have this unique journey before D3 splits off with Lexi Janiak, with some of these others that are quality wrestlers. Enjoy this because it's a lot of fun. We talked last time that we did not see the Grand Valley State versus McKendree duel. Well, it was on FloWrestling, which is embarrassing for me. It's on our platform, and I didn't know that. So here's what happened. It wasn't labeled as Grand Valley State or McKendree. It said the GVLC duels. I wasn't looking for that, so was nice enough to have someone send it to me saying, here it is, and it was on Flow. And I don't remember going to the schedule and seeing a link to Flow. I should have known that because Grand Valley State duels are on Flow, but had a chance to watch it all the way through, didn't fast forward through anything. And we will start with 117 pounds, the one that you just mentioned, Yu Sakamoto against Sage Mortimer. She got that 6 point lead, and then it looked like Sage was going for broke at the end. The next time they wrestle, it will look completely different because they just get in these chaos positions.
Good chaos positions. They both wrestle a very kind of loose style, which is fun to watch and aggravating for coaches in the corner. But I like that, free flowing style. I can probably be tightened up a little bit, but they get in crazy positions, and it's whoever scrambles out of it comes out on top. Everybody's always exposed at some point. It seems as exposures in both of their matches a lot. Other Sakamoto matches as well. So yeah, I'd love to see it again. Keep seeing it. I love watching those matches, and yeah, I mean, I think Sage kind of blitzed her in the first one. This one Sakamoto won, but it was not like a massacre by Sakamoto. I mean, it's just you have to watch it.
A couple more that struck me. If that Shelby Moore shows up to nationals, she is a title contender. She looked solid on all her technique. That looked like the best version I've ever seen of Shelby Moore. She can win a championship wrestling that way.
That was the best I've seen Shelby Moore look, except for the U.S. Open when I think she took third and beat some good people along the way. That was the year. What was that? The 24, I think it was, and she looked really good then. I've seen that Shelby Moore when she's on, and she's clean, and she feels it, and there's some matches she has slightly down matches. Hopefully, as she just continues to develop and get more and more experience, the ratio of consistency will keep increasing because that version can go with anybody for sure.
Last one I'll point out is at 138, Haley Jaffe won 2-1. The last time they wrestled was 2-1 in favor of Katie Lang. That was a finals rematch that Lang dominated 10-0. It wasn't as much about the match, it was more the reaction from Jaffe afterwards. It was just this pure joy and excitement, and it wasn't arrogant in any way. It just felt like I did it and just overcame this monumental task of beating someone who beat me, and I just love that pure euphoria that she had in her face. So congratulations to her on getting that win. I think it'll be different no matter one side or the other. I don't think it'll be 2-1 next time for either of those wrestlers, but get over the hump. That's a big win for her.
Yeah, Jaffe has looked good, and I pointed that out in one of the previous episodes. I thought in losing she looked very good. Lang is tough as hell, just really scrappy and a gamer and a competitor. I'm sure she's pissed off and wants to get another crack. But Jaffe's developing. She's just going to keep improving. She's been on my radar. She looked really good, and I'm looking forward to see those two go at it again.
Also mention the 207-pound match between Tristan Kelly and Sabrina Noss. That was 4-4 in favor of Kelly. Boy, when you get one of those, it just shows you Noss is right there. And if she stays at 207, she can go with anyone and possibly win that weight. And I just think it's competitive at 207 right now. You have some quality wrestlers right there. But like we said, pole position. Who's going to avoid Kylie Welker and go to a different weight class? Who wants to stay at 180? Will Welker stay at 180? Are they going, is Iowa going to maneuver? I think the two heaviest weight classes is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, the beauty is we will get to see it in conference tournaments, so we'll know what the landscape will be going into the national tournaments. She's got a very proven track record. I mean, so hopefully she's made some adjustments and gotten back on track. Make a run for, national title.
Simon Fraser, as we've discussed, will be leaving the NCAA, so let's enjoy them while they are here. They dominated the RMAC championships, which is their conference championships. The best team other than Simon Fraser is Colorado Mesa. The thing that always strikes me with Simon Fraser, especially now when you don't have the Helens or the Victoria Anthonys or any number of Dom Parishes, just the great wrestlers that have gone through the program.
Every Malvelti, everybody's.
Yeah, I mean, right. It was the program to be for a while. But now you see it and they dominate. They had 7 champions. And I had to just acquaint myself with who some of these wrestlers are, because when they get to the national tournament, you want to know who they are. They have some good wrestlers in the program. And I think Justin Abdu, the head coach there, likes us not talking about the program because he likes to stay in the weeds, just say, we're going to sneak up on you. But they're the mystery program every year because they have good wrestlers, but you just don't see them at the U.S. Open sometimes because they might have some Canadians. I'm going to be excited to see what they can do and if some of those wrestlers can get on the podium.
Yeah, and I'm sad that they're actually leaving the United States, for the national affiliation, because I thought it was always a really cool thing, especially when you didn't have that many teams and they were the best team for a while. So the idea that just Western Canada would come in and crush everybody was kind of cool. You'd have a mix of Americans and Canadians, and now they're leaving. And I think it ultimately, I'm sure it's all about money, like everything else, but I think ultimately it's going to hurt that Canadian wrestling to not have Simon Fraser competing against U.S., bringing back the experience and the competition, having Americans up there. I just it's sad to me.
Sad for me too, because they have been such a fundamental program to the advancement of women's college wrestling. To not have them anymore is going to be sad. But they did dominate the RMACs, and I think that be ready for what they can bring. I think they have some good wrestlers. They have wrestlers with some Canadian World Team experience, and you just don't want to overlook what Simon Fraser can do. And Justin Abdu and I both think the world of Tonya Verbeek, and we are both scared of her. So we both have that in common. We know how tough Tonya Verbeek is. Go back and watch her matches. She was an absolute savage on the mat. She was so freaking good. And we also adore her. She's awesome.
Yeah, and obviously she had a couple of interesting things I think about her is, she made a world team at a very young age, then didn't make another one for like 9 years or something, and then won 3 Olympic medals. And if a person named Sayori Yoshida didn't exist, who was a 13-time world champ, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 1-time Olympic silver, only losing to Helen Maroulis in Rio. And if she didn't exist, Verbeek probably would have been a 3-time, or perhaps would have been a 3-time Olympic gold medalist. But Yoshida did exist. Tanya's fierce, and Justin's pretty fierce himself, having beaten Cale Sanderson. There aren't that many people that can say that.
And I stand by this. Tonya Verbeek is the women's wrestling GOAT of Canada. I know there's been others that have won Olympic gold medals and world titles.
Carolyn who?
Yeah, I know, but to me, she's the GOAT. So 6-time world and Olympic medalist, bronze or silver, and you mentioned the Yoshida.
Eric Weave.
I know, but Tanya's number one for me. I'm just going with who
I know.
my number one is.
Interesting debate, though. I'd love to have that debate. I'm not saying I wouldn't pick Tanya, but I'm just saying there's a bunch of great ones from up there.
Let's talk about the inverted pyramid that is women's wrestling, because when you watch how women's wrestling has developed, and this could be men's wrestling too, but you have a heavy competition schedule when you're a youth in high school. And then we've talked about the transition from high school to college, and I think it gets a little less from there. But then it gets even less when you go to international competition if you want to be a professional. So it's the opposite of, say, baseball, where in college you might play 50 games and then you're 162 when you get to Major League Baseball. Sometimes our best aren't wrestling more than 3 competitions a year. And if you're lucky, you are getting to the world championships. And you brought this point up to me when you are in college and you're wrestling some of these opens, you are in the flow of things, you're in competition shape, and it maybe doesn't mean as much. When you have few competitions and you are a senior level athlete and this is your job, there is now an inherent pressure to win these tournaments and to do well that you maybe don't get in college. Because when you're going to the US Open and you're in college, you can wrestle free. You can say, no one's expecting me to do anything. The club might pay for it. When you are an athlete that is now, this is your profession, the game changes. And Kayla Miracle said that just because she was a multi-time silver medalist and at the top, it doesn't mean you know where your next meal is going to come from and that you have a salary that's flowing into your pocketbook all the time. This is a different level of competition and how you approach the sport.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to wrestling a lot or to not wrestling as often. I think as you get older, your body gets beat up. Number one. Number two, it's expensive to go to these competitions because they're not all in your backyard, like where you're in a regional area for college. Then, I think also number three, a lot of the people don't want everybody to keep wrestling them. If you're better than somebody and beating them, the tendency is the more you wrestle somebody, unless you're just that much better, that gap closes. So you don't want everybody to be filming everything you do and competing all the time. I also think the issue in terms of periodization, the U.S. is a little bit different than Europe. I've talked about this as well, where they're okay, wrestling not in peak form just to get the first competition or two under their belt early in the season and not worry if they take a loss. I think we take it a little worse here. We're not as cool in the U.S. of going to a competition and being beat by somebody that you've beaten before. If you truly know, even if you truly know you haven't trained, we get bogged down in that psychological thing where I don't think, the Russians, Azerbaijanis, I think they're okay with it. If they know in their heart and soul that they really have not, trained like peaking for that time and just want to get their feet wet, they're okay with it. We take it a little harder here, I think.
Do you think Japan's in that boat? Do you think they take it as hard? Where are they on that?
They don't like losing internationally. I think they would take it very hard. I don't think they look at it that way. I think they're okay if they compete and lose domestically. Not that they like it, but they're okay with it. And they'll go at it. They'll wrestle each other in special dual meets or in, the Meiji Cup and the Emperor's Cup in these tournaments. Sometimes somebody can skip one. But I think many of them, so it's some of them a game. It's like Takuhara will go to, Bill Farrell and some of the Japanese. Well, I don't think they like losing internationally. It bothers them, I think.
But it's interesting because they do have a different formula because even though they don't like losing, they will play with some scenarios like we saw at the 25 World Championships where maybe they didn't send their best team, they sent some, and you do have a mix. So it is interesting how they play that game.
Well, I'll differentiate between the concept that it's a superstar who's a world champion one that comes over and loses. That's one thing. But what they'll do is they'll put a second, third, or fourth, or fifth teamer who could, easily be world medal, if not higher caliber. In many cases, the number 4 could be a world champ at some point already. So they're okay with that. And they have no problem. If anything, they wrestle less internationally where they'll sit people out a year after the Olympics or, with us, it's like, you're that number 1, you're sitting in Final X. You don't want to lose that. If you don't compete for a year, then you got to go back to the Open, try to get your way to Final X. With them, they're okay with skipping, giving up their spot sometimes, it seems to me.
And it seems like Helen has the European mentality that she may take a loss and she's just able to get over it. Her mentality is probably different than anyone's. Adeline Gray was a mental monster. And I say was, she still is. And who knows if she's going to continue to compete or if she has another match in her. But I think they have a formula that you want to continue to learn from because they were able to dial in on some things mentally.
Okay, I'll say one thing Helen once said, and I'm pretty sure this is public, so I'm not like betraying anything. I'm pretty sure that she has said this, or Terry may have said it, but I know that like one time in Pan Am's when she took a loss, I believe it was to that Cuban who she's infinitely better than, right? And she said something after like, I'm never doing this again unless I want to, like meaning I kind of got asked to come. I wasn't really gung ho about it. I came down here. It wasn't really. She didn't like losing, she knows that was not the best version of herself, and then she wound up, winning, I think, a world silver medal that year or something like that. But but she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy, and I think she allowed herself to compete in something that she wasn't game for. So I think she can reconcile competing if she wants to, knowing, hey, I may not be above my best, it's my choice, but she's not okay with like just doing it for the sake of doing it, and because you can't. I don't care. Helen, is a three-time Olympic medalist, Olympic gold medalist, four-time world champ. And if she's not in the right frame of mind to compete, she still can be vulnerable. Everybody can. You have to want to compete.
But let's just go through what we've talked about over the course of multiple shows. So you have high school where the focus is on you and your development, and you have parents there, you have a club, and a lot of times you are the focal point. Then you go to college where you're not as much the focal point, you're part of a team, and you may be one of many that are coming out of a situation where you were the focal point and you're trying to figure things out on your own for the first time. And the competition is condensed. There are expectations. We are giving you a scholarship. You have obligations to compete for this team because we are trying to win championships at this institution. Over the course of a season, you may wrestle 30 to 40 times, which is different than what you will do in the international. It's not normal to wrestle every single week when you are trying to win an Olympic gold medal. And then you go out of that, and now you are a professional, and you're expected to have all of the internal motivation. This is because you want to do it. No one's pushing you to do it. You have to do it because this is absolutely what you want to do. And how many times have you said that? If you aren't fully committed, wrestling isn't the sport for you because this is a brutal sport. It's unforgiving. You're making weight. There's just so many things. So you have to be 100% bought in. So there really is this life cycle of how you're able to manage these emotions and the physical part of women's freestyle wrestling.
It's a brutal existence, and you have to want to do it. And I can share something that I've heard from both, like my daughter or from, other world class athletes that it's easy to say, I'm sick of this. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I can't believe I lost. Why did I wrestled poorly. I didn't open up. Why did I go to that tournament? How come I'm still doing this? What am I doing with my life? But for most of the athletes that I've ever talked to and heard from other people as well, when you stop doing it, you realize how much you love it. So it's a love-hate relationship. It's easy because it is hard and miserable at times. And I don't care, unless you just go where you walk, which very few people do, and cut zero, almost everybody the night before weigh-in can't stand the sport and questions their life. And it's tough and it sucks. And you're traveling, man. You're traveling. You're scrambling. Your bag gets lost. You haven't eaten. You're just starting to cut water weight because you only have one day when you're there to cut. All these things. But then all of a sudden you stop doing it, and almost everybody I've talked to that was good and really you think liked it said they miss it or they want to be doing it. They're not complete. They go back. So it's very hard to leave. As much as it's hard to do, it's hard to not do because the people that do it well are intense type A's that are really good at it.
Well, if you love women's freestyle wrestling, this is the weekend for you. You have Zagreb, you have For Her duels, you have Grand View Open all this weekend, along with other tournaments. This really is positioning for the inaugural 2026 NCAA Women's Championships. It's like no other. And enjoy this ride. On my whiteboard, I have the list of how many programs we have. We just added another one with Mercyhurst, so we're up to 8 now. So it's 8D1, 38 D2, 77 D3. And it's just fun to see those numbers go off. Of course, D3 is going to split off, but keep those numbers growing.
Yeah, and it was fun to see the Mercyhurst because that we hadn't talked about, and that's in Erie, PA. So this is like wrestling. I was Wrestletown, USA. Erie, PA, in that area in Pennsylvania is pretty significant wrestling hotbed. So I think it's great that they put a school there, and I think the local. I'm not saying they're not going to get people from all over the country potentially as a Division I school, but I'm saying that at the very least there is fertile ground around there with which to get athletes from. So I think that's a great thing.
Especially with Pennsylvania high school wrestling exploding like
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
That's the hotbed where what did Penn State say when they got Cale Sanderson? Let's fence in the state. If you can fence in the state, you're looking
Exactly.
good. Yeah, it's
You
a good
don't need,
start.
and and then if you're not going national, maybe you stray and you get Ohio or New Jersey. I mean, this very good wrestling in that area for sure.